Chapter 23, Improvising a Temple. Karasor, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This letter has been provoked by points discussed in your recent visit. As some of your daily practices are ceremonial, it should not come amiss to vouchsafe a few hints of practical service. For in ritual magic, it will of course be the first care to get everything balanced and tidy. If you propose to erect a regular temple, the most precise instructions in every detail are given in Book 4, Part 2, but I haven't so much as seen a copy for years. There is a good deal scattered about in Part 3, Magic, which you have, especially about the four elemental weapons. But if circumstances deny you for the moment the means of carrying out this edification as the ideal would have it, you can certainly do your best to create a fairly satisfactory, above all, workable substitute. I was often reduced to such expedients when wandering in strange lands, camping on glaciers, and so on. I fixed it workably well. In Mexico, D.F, for instance, I took my bedroom itself for the circle, my night table for the altar, my candle for the lamp, and I made the weapons compact. I had a wand 8 inches long, all precious stones and enamel, to represent the tree of life, within an iron tube containing quicksilver. Very correct, lordly, and damselly. What a club! Also, I bought a silver gilt cup for air and earth. I made one sachet of rose petals in yellow silk and another in green silk packed with salt. In the wilds, it was easy, agreeable, and most efficacious to make a circle and build an altar of stones. My alpine lantern served admirably for the lamp. It did double duty when required. Example, in partaking of the sacrament of the four elements, it served for fire. But your conditions are not so restricted as this. Let us consider what one can do with an ordinary house, such as you are happy enough to possess. First of all, it is of immense advantage to have a room specially consecrated to the work, never used for any other purpose, and never entered by any other person than yourself, unless it were another initiate, either for inspection or in case you were working together. The energy accumulates with the regularity and frequency of use. The first point is the banishing. Everything is to be removed from the room which is not absolutely necessary to the work. In this country, one must attend to the heating. An electric stove in the east or the south is best. It must not need attention. One can usually buy stoves with excellent appropriate symbolism. Last time I did this, I got a perfect Ferranti at Harrods. The circular copper bowl, with the central disc as the source of heat, is unsurpassable. The walls should be self colored, a neutral tint, green, gray, or blue gray, and entirely bare, unless you put up, in the proper quarters, the proper designs, such as the watchtowers. See The Equinox, Volume 1, Number 7. Remember that your east, your Qabalah, is Boleskin House, which is as near as possible due north from Plymouth. Find north by the shadow of a vertical rod at noon or by the pole star. Work out the angle as usual. The stele of revealing may be just on the north wall to make your east. Next, your circle. The floor ought to be earth green, but white will serve, or black. A Masonic carpet is not at all bad. The circle itself should be as shown in Book 4, Part 2. But as this volume is probably unavailable, ask me to show you the large painted diagram in my portfolio when next you visit me, and we can arrange for it to be copied. This should then be painted in the correct colors on the floor. The Kether square to the north, your east. The altar must fit exactly the square of Tefereth. It is best made as a cupboard. of oak or acacia, by preference. It can then be used to hold reserves of incense and other requisites. Note that the height of the altar has to suit your convenience. It is consequently in direct relation with your own stature. In proportion, it is a double cube. This then determines the size of your circle. In fact, the entire apparatus and furniture is a geometrical function of yourself. Consider it all as a projection of yourself in terms of these conventional formulae. A convention does really mean that which is convenient. How abject, then, to obey a self styled convention which is actually as inconvenient as possible. Next, the lamp. This may be of silver or silver gilt to represent the path of Gimel and is to be hung from the ceiling exactly above the center of the altar. There are plenty of old church lamps which serve very well. The light is to be from a wick in a floating cork and a glass of olive oil. I hope you can get it. It is really desirable to make this as near to the ever burning lamp of the Rosicrucians as possible. It is not a drawback that this implies frequent attention. Now for the weapons. The wand. Let this be simple, straight, and slim. Have you an almond or a witch hazel in your garden? Or do I call it park? If so, cut with the magic knife. I would lend you mine. A bow, as nearly straight as possible, about 2 feet long. Peel it. Rub it constantly with oil of abrimlin. This and his incense from Wallace and Company, 26 New Cavendish Street, and keep wrapped in scarlet silk. Constantly I wrote and meant it, rub it, when saying your mantra to the rhythm of that name. Remember, Akadua is the best. Ask me to intone it to you when you next visit me. The cup. There are plenty of chalices to be bought. It should be of silver. If ornamented, the best form is that of the apple. I have seen suitable cups in many shops. The sword. The ideal form is shown in the Ace of Swords of the tarot. At all events, let the blade be straight and the hilt a simple cross. The 32nd degree Masonic sword is not too bad. Kenning or Spencer in Great Queen Street stock them, or used to. The disc. This ought to be of pure gold, with your own pantacle, designed by yourself after prolonged study, graved thereupon. While getting ready for this, any plain circle of gold will have to serve your turn. Quite flat, of course. If you want a good simple design to go on interium, try the Rosy Cross or the unicursal hexagram. So much for the weapons. Now, as to your personal accoutrements, robe, layman, sandals, and the like, the book of the law has most thoughtfully simplified matters for us. Quote, I charge you earnestly to come before me in a single robe and covered with a rich headdress. End quote. Al 1, verse 61. The robe may well be in the form of the Tau cross. An example, expanding from axilla to ankle, and from shoulder to whatever you call the place where your hands come out. Shape well shown in the illustration Magick, page 380. You being a probationer, plain black is correct, and the unicursal hexagram might be embroidered, or applique, is it? I mean stuck on, upon the breast. The best headdress is Nemeus. I cannot trust myself to describe how to make one, but there are any number of models in the British Museum or in any illustrated hieroglyphic text. The Sphinx wears one, and there is a photograph showing the shape and structure very clearly in The Equinox, Volume 1, Number 1. Frontispiece to supplement. You can easily make one yourself out of silk. Broad black and white stripes is a pleasing design. Avoid artistic complexities. Well, that ought to be enough to keep you out of mischief for a little while, but I feel moved to add a line of caution and encouragement. Listen, fate's attention, Ashtung, Qabalah Karo. Just as soon as you start seriously to prepare a place for magical work, the world goes more cockeyed than it is already. Don't be surprised if you find that 6 weeks intense shopping all over London fails to provide you with some simple requisite that normally you could buy in 10 minutes. Perhaps your fires simply refuse to burn, even when liberally doused with petrol and phosphorus, with a handful of chlorate of potash thrown in just to show there is no ill feeling. When you have almost decided that you had better make up your mind to do with something that seems really quite unobtainable, say, a 60-carat diamond which would look so well on your headdress, a perfect stranger comes along and makes you a present of one. Or a long series of quite unreasonable obstacles or silly accidents interfere with your plans. Or the worst difficulty in your way is incomprehensibly removed by some extraordinary freak of chance. In a word, you seem to have strolled into a world where, well, it might be going too far to say that the law of cause and effect is suspended, but at least the law of probability seems to be playing practical jokes on you. This means that your maneuvers have somehow attracted the notice of the astral plane. Your new neighbors, may I call them, are taking an interest in the latest tenderfoot, some to welcome, to do all they can to help you settle down. Others are indignant or apprehensive at this disturbance of routine. This is where your banishings and invocations come to the rescue. Of course, I am not here referring to the approach to sanctuaries, which of necessity are closely guarded, but merely to the recognition of a newcomer to that part of the world in general. Of course, all these miracles are very naughty of you. They mean that your magical power has sprung a few small leaks. At least, the water is oozing between some planks not sealed as hermetically as they should be. But oh, and this is naughtier still, it is a blessed comfort that they happen, that chance, coincidence, and all the rest will simply not explain it all away. That your new vision of life is not a dream, but part and parcel of experience forevermore, as real as any other manifestation of reality through sense such as is common to all men. And this brings us, it has been a long way round, from the suggestion of your visit to the question hitherto unanswered in your letter. You raise so vast and razor-edged a question when you write of the supposed antinomy of soul and sense that it seemed better to withhold comment until this later letter. Much meditation was most needful to compress the answer within reasonable limits. Even to give it form at all is no easy matter. For this is probably the symptom of the earliest stirring of the mind, of the caveman to reflection, thereunto moved by other symptoms, those of the morning after following upon the night before. It is, have we not already dealt with that matter after a fashion? Evidence of disease when an organ becomes aware of its own modes of motion. Certainly, the mere fact of questioning life bears witness to some interruption of its flow, just as a ripple on an even stream tells of a rock submerged. The fiercer the torrent and the bigger the obstacle, the greater the disturbance to the surface. Have I not seen them on the Balderoof, 8 feet high? Lethargic folk with no wild impulse of will may get through life in bovine apathy. We may well note that, in a sense, the rage of the water seems to our perturbed imagining actually to increase and multiply the obstructions. There is a critical point beyond which the ripples fight each other. That, in short, is a picture of you. You have mistaken the flurry of passing over some actual snag for a snag in itself. You put the blame onto your own quite rational attempts to overcome difficulties. The secret of the trick of getting past the rocks is elasticity, yet it is that very quality with which you reproach yourself. We even, at the worst, reach the state for which Buddhism in the East presents most aptly the case, as in the West does James Thompson B.V. in The City of Dreadful Night. We come to wish for, or more truly to think that we wish for, blessed nirvana, sinless and stainless peace, or some such twaddle. Thank God I can't recall Arnold's mawkish and unmanly phrase. In B.V's dateless oblivion and divine repose. I insist on the think that you wish, because if the real you did really wish the real that, you could never have come to exist at all. Quote, but I don't exist. I know. Let's get on. End quote. Note, please, how sophistically unconvincing are the Buddhist theories of how we ever got into this mess. First cause, ignorance. The way out, then, knowledge. Okay, that implies a knower, a thing known, and so on and so forth, through all the three waste paper baskets of the law. Analyze, it turns out to be nonsense, all dolled up to look like thinking. And there is no genuine explanation of the origin of the will to be. How different, how simple, how self evident is the doctrine of the book of the law. There are any number of passages dealing with this matter in my writings. Let's forget them and keep to the text. 1, verse 26, quote, my ecstasy, the consciousness of continuity of existence, the omnipresence of my body, end quote. Verse 30, quote, this is the creation of the world, that the pain of division is as nothing, and the joy of dissolution all, end quote. There is a Kabbalistic intermeaning in this text. The pain, for instance, may be read the expression of star love, and so on, all too complicated for this time and place. Verse 32, quote, then the joys of my love will redeem ye from all pain, end quote. Verse 58, I give unimaginable joys on earth, certainty, not faith while in life, upon death, peace unutterable, rest, ecstasy, end quote. In chapter 2, verse 9, quote, remember all ye that existence is pure joy, that all the sorrows are but as shadows, they pass and are done, but there is that which remains, end quote. The continuation is amusing. Verses 10 and 11 read, quote, O prophet, thou hast ill will to learn this writing. I see thee hate the hand and the pen, but I am stronger, end quote. At that time, I was a hard-shell Buddhist, sent out a New Year's card saying, quote, wishing you a speedy termination of existence, end quote. And this as a young man with the world at my feet. It only goes to show. Verses 19 and 20, quote, is a God to live in a dog? No, but the highest are of us. Beauty and strength, leaping laughter and delicious languor, force and fire are of us, end quote. This chapter returns over and over again to this theme in one form or another. What is really more significant is the hidden, the unexpressed soul of the book, the way in which it leaps into wild spate of rhapsody on any excuse or no excuse. This is surely more convincing than some dreary thesis, plodding along doggedly with the proof explanation point that, quote, God is good, end quote. Every sentence creaking with your chalk stones and squeaking with the twinges of your toe. Yet, just because I proclaim a doctrine of joy in the language of joy, people, dull camels, say I am not serious. Yet I have found pleasure in harnessing the winged horses of the sun to the plowshare of reason, and showing the validity of this doctrine in detail. It satisfies my sense of rhythm and of symmetry to explain that every experience, no matter what, must of necessity be a gain of grandeur, of grip, of comprehension and enjoyment, ever growing as complexity and simplicity succeed each other in sublime systole and diastole, in strophe and anastrophe, chanting against each other to the stars of the night and of the morning. Of course, it is easy as pie to knock all this to pieces by lunatic logic, saying, then the toothache is really as pleasant as strawberry shortcake. You are hereby referred to 8 lectures on yoga. None of the terms I am using have been or can be defined. All my propositions amount to no more than tautology. A is A. You may even quote the book of the law itself. Quote, now a curse on because and his kin. Enough of because, be he damned for a dog. End quote. Al, chapter 2, verses 28 through 33. These things stink of ignorato elenchi, or something painfully like it, a sort of slipping up a cog, of confusing the planes, of willfully misunderstanding the gist of an argument. All magicians, by the way, ought to be grounded solidly in formal logic. Never forget, at the least, how simple it is to make a maniac's hell broth of any proposition, however plain to common sense. All the above now, Buddhism refuted. Yet, it is a possibility, and therefore one facet of truth. Rest is an idea, so immobility is one of the moving states. A certain state of mind, almost by definition, eternal, yet it most assuredly begins and ends, and so on forever. I fear it would be nugatory, pleonastic, and several other lovely long adjectives to try to guard you from these hydra headed and protean booby traps. You must tackle them yourself as they arise and deal with them as best you can, always remembering that often enough you cannot tell which is you and which is the monkey puzzle or who has won. Everybody's won, so everybody must have a prize, applies beautifully. And none of it at all matters a row of Heracots vert salets, for the conclusion must always be doubt. See that beastly Book of Lies again? There's a gorgeous chapter about it. And the practical moral is this: these contradictions don't occur or don't matter in neshama. And if the above remarks should embolden you to exclaim, perhaps a little drink would do me no great harm, I shall feel that I have deserved well of my country. For see Liber Elf, after Rebellious, the word of the last oracle is trink. This plaintive veers tails off, and perks up in so doing, with confession of ambition, and considerations of what you must leave over to your next life. Very right. But all that is covered by your general program. It is proper to assimilate these ideas with the fundamental structure of your mind. Perhaps I had better leave the life and opinion of Battling Bill, the Ballarat Bruiser, till, shall we say, 6 incarnations ahead? But perhaps you have acquired that already. No, better still, concentrate on the next step. After all, it is the only one you can take, isn't it? Without lust of result, please. And I shall leave anything else to the next letter. Love is the law. Love under will. Yours fraternally. P.S. Next letter. Yes, they are running into one another more than somewhat. It is better so, for life is like that, and we have the bold bad editor to sort them out.